I am going live on both Instagram and Facebook. So depending on where I look, it'll just be. So I wanted to get on live because I wanted to talk about where I've been for the past 3 months in my own evolution and my own process. And a big part of my process, especially in the past 3 months, has to do a lot with um, how I've just been dealing with trusting without relying on the outcome. And so today I'm going to be talking about the power of friction and why doing nothing is actually an actionable thing to do. So thank you to the people joining me on both Instagram and on Facebook. Hello, hello, Yogesh. Let's see here. Hello, everybody. Okay, so I want to share a little bit of my story. And if you've heard me speak before, you know that I've dealt with a lot of things over my journey in terms of anxiety and panic attacks and things of that nature. And I was able to come up out of that. And I've been free of a lot of those things for years. And so in the past 3 months, I have been dealing with this whole other level of resiliency and learning how to navigate when life is, it feels tight, it feels tense, it feels constrictive, and it feels like too much friction. It's uncomfortable. And a big part of, hey, Christian, I'm on Instagram and Facebook, so I'm checking to see everybody here. Um, so one of the things that I've been acknowledging and working on and really cultivating is understanding that in order to grow, you've got to go through a friction space. In order to grow, you have to be in this space of friction. And if you think about it, when you are growing, you are legitimately at a crossroad. You are at a crossroad between the old part of you that is no longer serving you and the part of you that you desire and truly want to step into fully. And so what tends to happen is those two realities start to rub up against each other and they start to create friction. And so when we are growing, we don't grow when we're comfortable. We can sit there, we can be comfortable, everything's fine. We're not looking for any sort of inkling or any sort of factor that's going to tell us, get up and do something, get up and move, get up and change, get up and be something different. That only happens when friction comes into the picture. And friction is anything that makes us uncomfortable. Friction is anything that causes us to look deeper, causes us to question, causes us to go inward. That's what friction is. And so there's a power in having this friction. And in the past 3 months, for me, I've been in this very strong friction place where I quit my job about, 3 months ago in October. I quit my full-time job and I decided I wanted to step into my business full-time. And that's what I'm doing. And I worried about the outcome and especially about the finances. I was like, how am I going to make money? How am I going to bring all that in? And the only things that I could rely on in those moments of complete and utter discomfort was my faith in a higher source. So that would be the very first suggestion that I would say to anybody who is dealing with some uncomfortable moments and you're dealing with that discomfort and you don't know how to get with it. You're going to need to rely on something bigger than yourself. So I relied on a higher source and I relied on the present moment. So there's this beautiful art of being present. There's this beauty in just sitting in exactly what it is that you're sitting in and surrendering to it, giving yourself all the way to it. And what that looks like is I stopped focusing on needing to meet my goals. The goals were set, the intentions had been set, but I stopped trying to meet them. And not as in a procrastinator way, but in a way as to if I was focusing on them and I was worried, like, okay, what if I never make this? What would happen if? And I was getting caught up in these fearful mind traps where my mind was taking me all into all these forms of anxiety, and I was worried, and my body was getting tense. It was hard to breathe deep, and I was just like not having it. I was uncomfortable. And the only way that I could really get through that level of discomfort was to completely stop resisting. I had to say, so what if my worst fears come to pass? So what? Then what's going to happen? Okay, so say my worst fears come to pass. Say I don't make my financial goals. Say, I lose everything that I consider my foundation. So what? Then what happens? The only thing that I came up to in my conclusion was that if those things had to happen, then that would be the container that I ended up in to show me another way of being, right? So friction comes when we are given the opportunity, or we are equipped to have the opportunity to be and grow. And so if I were supposed to be in that space, then I would, right? If I were supposed to be anywhere else but other than right here in this moment, then I would be. And so what I had to learn was, okay, I've been given this level of discomfort to sit in the discomfort, not to try to rush it along, not to try to rush the process, not to try to get to the end quicker than what I can do right now. But the whole point of that discomfort was to see, what is it teaching me about myself? How am I growing? What am I learning? What am I feeling? How am I accessing myself in this space? How am I accessing the present moment? And that is the power of friction. We get so caught up in needing to go, 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 and we get caught up in that beautiful masculine, yang driven world, that there is a beauty in embodying that yin space. And yin is that feminine, nurturing, mothering space that says, come, I'll hold you. It's okay. You don't have to have the answers. You don't have to know where you're going. All you have to do is allow and receive and be. That's what happens inside of a womb. If you think about the psychic womb, when people are in that psychic womb space, the only thing that they can do is hold on to their vision. You can't make that vision drop down out of the sky any quicker than you could with anything else, right? That's called manifestation. That's called setting intentions. But sometimes we want it so quickly, we want it right now, and we forget that there's a process to developing the thing that it is that we desire, we want, because who we are right now may not be equipped to handle what we say we actually want. So we have to cultivate that. And that's why sitting in that space of discomfort and being present, dropping into it, surrendering, taking a breath, and knowing that you are going to be okay is actually the best thing and the easiest thing that you can give to yourself. Now, there is a challenge to it, because it does require you to let go of control. It does require you to fall out of that airplane, skydive, and trust that you're going to be caught by that parachute when you hit the ground, right? So if you are in a space where you're sad, you're depressed, you are struggling with low motivation, you are having a hard time with anxiety, you're overwhelmed, you're overthinking, you're always in your head, things don't seem to be going your way, you have too much on your plate, and you just can't seem to catch a break. Everything always seems to fall beneath the surface just when you think you've gotten right above ground, when you've got right above water. And I'm here to remind you that where you are is exactly where you need to be. If you were supposed to be anywhere else, you would be. And in order for you to grow beyond your measure, you're going to have to be in that space of friction. Friction is the growing opportunity. Chaos is the growing opportunity. Breakdown is the growing opportunity. All of these things have to wear ourselves thin between the old reality of where we are to the new reality of where we want to be. which means we're going to have to rub ourselves raw in order to break or sever the ties, because you can't be who you say you want to be, and you can't have what you say you want to have if you're still bringing a part of this old part of you on the journey with you. It just won't happen, which means you're going to have to level up. If you need communication tools, level up in your communication tools. If you need help managing anger and stress and, worry, get some tools. If you need to get into some therapy, get some coaching, get some energy healing, go seek out those people who can help you. Because if you stay where you are in your old container, you're not going to allow that container to be stretched long enough for a new container to come along the surface, which means the only way to get from the old container to the new container is to surrender to the friction. Surrender, allow, nurture yourself in the process. That means you're going to have to take better care of yourself, right? So that's going to be learning how to put yourself first, learning how to say no when you need to, learning how to slow down. I get calls from a lot of women who are parents, and they are consistently giving to their kids over and over again. And they've created a life, unfortunately, where the kids come first and they come last. And in the reality of things, that just can't be. You're going to have to create some friction or some chaos to learn how to prioritize and communicate yourself before those kids. And that does mean at some point you're going to have to drop the bag, and the expectation that those kids are going to have a hard time dealing with you creating this shift. It's okay, right? So we don't go through life without friction. We don't go through life without sadness and despair and hopelessness and pain and hurt. Those things happen because they create enough empathy inside of us to respond and relate to life and other people in that exact same way. We know what it feels like when we're struggling, so that when somebody else is struggling, we're like, I get it, I understand, and we're even more eager to help the other person. So there's a beautiful macrocosm to friction. So even if it's just challenging you on an internal level individually, it trickles and it ripples out into the ether, and other people start to receive it, because now you know what it feels like to not be so controlled. You know what it feels like to say, I'm just going to lean back. I'm going to sit in this sadness. I'm going to sit in this despair. I'm going to sit in this hopelessness, because that is the dying. That is the dying. Some people interpret that dying as suicidal thoughts. Suicidal thoughts, people eventually end up killing themselves, because when they get to that part where they want to die, they're like, I don't know what life looks like beyond me. I don't know what life looks like beyond this point. But what I'm here to say to you is that if you can see that you're in your breakthrough, when you're in that moment where you are ready to end things and you feel like you can't do it anymore, you are being called to sit in that despair and ask a very simple question. What is this moment of despair teaching me? What is this moment of despair teaching me? How can I nourish myself? What do I have to do to take care of me? If you can ask yourself those questions, what you'll start to notice is that things start to line up. They start to line up. And when the more things line up, the more clear you become. The more clear you become, the lighter you feel. When you feel light, you automatically respond to life from a more lighter space, right? And then things start to feel like, I've weathered the storm. I've gotten through it. I've made it past this friction point. So stay with friction. There's a power in it if you surrender, if you give yourself all the way to it, if you lend yourself to the parts where it feels the most uncomfortable, and you don't try to rush up out of it. There's a beautiful, powerful, growthful lesson that's waiting for you right in the middle of all that. And so I encourage you today, while we're at the top of the new year, while you're setting your goals, while you're setting your resolutions, while you're setting your intentions, while you're setting your themes, pay attention, because there will be some friction moments in the middle of that intention and goal setting. And guess what? It's actually okay. You are going to be a whole different person if you allow yourself to be nourished through that. So be nourished. That's the way to get through the friction. That's the way to get through that discomfort and that chaos. All right, I see some questions in here. Embrace it. Yeah. Yeah, embrace it. Yeah, you can't pour from an empty cup. Absolutely. You cannot pour from an empty cup. It just won't let you. Letting go of control is the hardest but the best feeling. Yes, Shalisa. Walk by faith, not by sight. Yeah, absolutely. There's so much confirmation. Something's, yeah, absolutely, Candy. Yeah. I love it. I love it. And Caitlin, I am writing a book on this. So trust me, for those of you joining me on Instagram, I'm also on Facebook too. And so I'm responding to some of the comments on Facebook. But yeah, Caitlin, I am writing a book. The book is going to be called The Power of Friction. So it's coming. We just have to wait it. So thank you. And so I don't know if you all can see this, but I have this chart that this manifesto that I created. It's called the Freedom Mindsets. And whenever I work with clients or just working in my life, I am specifically helping the people come from out of this powerless victim state into a space of power. And there are 3 mindsets that you absolutely need in order to shift from one consciousness to the next. And one of the shifts is understanding that in order to grow, friction is necessary. And it's okay for friction to exist. And if you say to yourself, I am friction worthy, what you're really saying is, I'm worthy of growth. And who isn't worthy of growth? I know I'm fucking worthy of growth, and I would be worthy of growth all day. You are worthy of growth, okay? Everybody's worthy of growth. We all desire to grow. We don't like staying where we are. Some of us want to hold on to not changing. And in reality, not changing does nothing for you. You have to change. Change is the only constant, and it's the only absolute, right? So nothing else is really that absolute. Everything else is pretty relative to our circumstance and our relationships with other people. So yeah, that's the third freedom mindset. The second freedom mindset is that problems do not exist. They are simply growing opportunities, right? So not necessarily that problems don't exist. This is a play on words. It's complete semantics, right? So naturally, our mindset believes that problems are problems and they shouldn't be there. But if you think about it and you change those problems into growing opportunities, then you're in a space where you can say, okay, this situation is happening because it's teaching me about myself. It's allowing me to grow. It's bringing me deeper into a connection with my own self. And that's literally what problems are, right? So some people are not going to be able to hear that or receive that. But yeah, that's how we bring all of this duality into this non-dual space. So non-duality looks like recognizing that things are here to benefit us. Things are here to help us, which brings me to that very first mindset, which is everything in my life is put here to grow me. There is nothing in my life against me, even if it feels incongruent to how I feel in what I'm doing and how I'm living. Right? So the reason I put it that way is because we walk through life with our own belief systems and our own feelings. That doesn't mean that it's here to make you suffer. It doesn't mean that it's here to cause you pain and hurt. What it is doing is it's allowing you to grow. It's allowing you to stretch yourself beyond where you are and see yourself in a different space. So that's how you start to shift and move from being a victim to life and moving into a space of collaborating with life. We are co-collaborators with life, and life shows up to show us where we can grow and how we can keep evolving. So that's all I really wanted to talk about today. So thank you all for indulging me. I wanted to make a random spontaneous live on both Instagram and Facebook just to try it out. So if anybody ever wants to work with me, I work with women and I help them to put themselves first. And we go through these mindsets of moving from that space of victimhood, that space of powerlessness, and I help you to reclaim your truth, reclaim what that looks like, and learning how to navigate through these walls of friction, because that is where the challenge is. And that's why a lot of people come to me, is because they're struggling with something in their life, and that's creating friction. So if you want to work with me, go to my website at cultivateselflove.com. I will put it right here in the comments. If you're on Instagram, you can go to my bio and click on the link and you can see how to work with me there. Alrighty, well, it was beautiful. I'm gonna go ahead and jump up off of this. Thank you all for being a part of this. Have a good day.